Guess who's back? Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the Doc of Detox live Q&A. I'm Dr. Darrell Wolfe, and today's show is 5G Toxicity with Dr. Magda Havas and Sheena Symington. I'm very excited to have both these lovely girls back on the show. Together, they both represent the Electrosensitive Society and are here today to discuss this topic in detail. But not really. They're here to answer your questions, but that is the main topic, isn't it? Sheena is the director of the organization. She has a background in biological and environmental sciences and has been researching chemical and electromagnetic pollutants and their effects on natural and human ecosystems for many years. Dr. Magda Havas is an environmental toxicologist with 45 years of expertise regarding the effects on humans and other species of chemical and electromagnetic pollutants. Okay, before we bring him on, I just want to say something, everyone. We have been unconsciously and subconsciously programmed, okay, to allow others to slowly poison us. Now think about that. What would happen if we had 20 to 30% of the population that said, no way, we're not doing this? That's all we would have to do to have a financial impact on corporations, and they would rethink it, because nobody, especially corporations don't have a beating heart, they don't have blood, they don't have emotions. So guess what? They just go, don't hear you, don't hear you. The only way they'll ever hear you is when their pocketbook, okay, becomes lighter, okay? And understand something, the day that you start flushing out the toxins and lightening up the pounds, okay, and really looking after your health is the only time that they're going to feel the dent. So we got to start saying no. You know what? Take a look at this. Just ask yourself how much you love yourself, and you'll know, because of how much toxicity you put in your mind, your mouth, and in your house, okay? And how much junk you allow your kids to eat and watch and talk. But then they would be getting that from their parents, wouldn't they? So the reality is that if we don't become conscious in the present moment, all right, then we could be in big trouble. Right now, I'd like to have Dr. Havas and Sheena come on and answer all your questions.
Thank you for having us on the show.
Hey, great. It's a pleasure. Totally. So here we go. All right. Okay, her name is Sam. All right. My husband is addicted to online gaming. So, of course, the rest of my kids are as well. I'm fighting a losing battle. How can I win, as they are all very moody and turn on me when I try to hold the line?
I think that's for you, Sheen.
It's not an easy one, especially how the kids will follow the adults, what they do. My gut says to eliminate the wireless component of the gaming. So to reduce any wireless exposure will help enormously. A lot of the gaming stations, I know the PS3 gaming station is the ability to wire everything as an option. So finding a gaming system that you can actually wire, because there are some gaming systems that are unable to wire completely. So that's going to be part of it. Having blue blocker glasses while they're using the gaming stations to do that. Magda's demonstrating hers. Blocking out that blue light that's the screen is shining into our eyes. Encouraging them to do it less just before they go to bed. And my instinct says, as a mom, to try and not worry about it, because your worry about it will add to the level of anxiety in the house. And trust that your example and your gentle information and setting your home up in a wired way with the reduction of the wireless technology will help. Because a lot of these times it's a phase. But again, like you say, your husband does it as well. So scheduling things that are outside that all of you can do together that you really love. Literally you unplugging from the whole issue may help them too. But it's not an easy one. There's a lot of science on the impacts of screens and gaming on kids and that addictive component. What's the gentleman in the States that was talking at the conference last fall. It's about the heroin. It's like screens being the equivalent of heroin. And it's a very interesting read on just the impact on both the adult brain and the child brain. But again, doing what you can and then letting it go, knowing that it'll work itself out.
Beautiful. Was that Jack Cruz?
No, it's not Jack Cruz. This
Okay.
is an author. Can't remember his name. I'll find it before we off.
Good. So everybody, just so you know, blue blockers are great, but the reality is, I say, why manage pain when you can master it? I say, why not turn 5G frequencies and turn blue light into healing frequencies? And whether you want to believe this or not, you can check it on my website. It's called Tesla Eyewear. And the reality is with Tesla eyewear, they're fluorine lenses, and they'll actually turn the blue light into healing light for your brain, okay? For your brain, and you'll see an improvement in your eyes, and you won't have any brain burn or anything like that. There is blue blockers out there, but if you want to go all the way and you want to harness the frequencies and the blue light and turn them into healing light, and also just know that we've got science, and we've got all the proof that proves that what I'm telling you is right. So instead of blocking it, let's master it. So instead of managing pain, let's understand that pain is not the enemy. Pain is a GPS, all right? So when your eyes are burning, that's because your brain is being fried like an egg. And so you can slow down the fry, okay? Or you can just put on Tesla eyewear, and you can wear these and you'll see your headache will come down right away. The stress will come down. The burning will come down. You will feel so much calmer. You'll sleep better. If you have to go back on your computer at nighttime or go onto a phone, it's not going to tell your brain that it's 12 noon, okay? And understand something. We'll give you a money back guarantee that when you put these on, it's not about just no eye burn, no brain burn, but you will be able to work better. And nobody can work on a computer all day and not come home in a great mood, okay, and treat everybody great. You cannot feel like you're fried and have energy, okay? So something to check out. Okay. Next thing. Do magnets, Valerie, do magnets have any effectiveness with disruption of frequencies?
You're talking about bar magnets that don't have, that are considered sort of direct current. They're not oscillating. There's companies, particularly in Japan, that are selling magnets to relieve pain. And it seems to have some beneficial effect for some people, but not for others. So it's something that you basically have to test for yourself. One of the things I don't recommend is putting a magnetic pad under your bed to sleep at night. I think that's just too much of a magnetic field. But certainly attaching a magnet to a
Shoulder.
Yeah, shoulder, sore shoulder, could be very beneficial for some people.
Thank you. And also, everyone, just so you know, we're ready to take your questions. If you're watching, you can send in on Facebook, or you can send in on YouTube, or you can send in on our website. Okay? So if you want to send your questions in, we'll take them live. Live questions come first. Okay? Cassandra, can you please suggest things to block 5G? For example, where can I find the film, or I guess she means the silver that you could put around your bed, right? The cover.
Well, there's film that
Okay.
you put on windows that will block it, and there's silver fabric, silver fibers and fabric that will also block the radiation. 5G will consist of 3 different frequency bands. One is called sub 1G, which is less than 1 gigahertz. The other is called sub 6 gigahertz. And then there's millimeter waves. So the material that we mentioned yesterday, the paint, the film on the windows, the fabric, we know will block the lower frequencies in the low gigahertz range, but we don't know if they're going to be effective for millimeter waves because we simply don't have the experience with them. So if you want to block those lower frequencies, those are the products to get. And there's a company called Safe Living Technologies, and it's SLT.co. And they're Canada-wide. They're also in the United States, and they sell these products. There's also another one called lessemf.com, and that's in the United States, and they sell the same products.
Excellent. Now, will these products actually block the good frequencies as well, or they're just going to block the negative ones?
Well, they're going to block microwave radiation, and
Okay.
we don't get microwave radiation from nature, so it's just not there.
Okay.
So it's only going to block the man-made frequencies.
Beautiful. Okay. Here we go. This is our first live one. Not that the other ones weren't, they're alive, but Shirley, can 5G affect you? Oh, can 5G affect your hearing aids?
Well, once again, 5G is the 3 different frequency bands. We know the lower frequency bands can affect hearing aids. People have had problems with that. Whether the millimeter waves will affect them, we simply don't know. We don't know anything about, we know very little about millimeter waves and how they're going to affect living organisms and technology that is wireless.
And the reason for that is because they don't have to be tested, or maybe they've been tested, but we're not being told about their tests, right?
Well, I don't think 5G has been sufficiently tested.
Okay.
There's there's a scattering of information from around the world, but none of it is for long-term exposure. It's for short-term medical exposure. It's for military exposure, but not long-term telecom exposure. And you were going to say something about
the hearing aids themselves are often wireless, so there might be an interference component with the hearing aid functions, but you can actually get wired hearing aids, and so it's not communicating through your brain from ear to ear. So it's important for people that are using hearing aids to have the wired option. You sometimes have to have them custom made, but they are still available.
Thank you so much. I didn't know that. That's really important, everyone. And I'll tell you something, whatever it costs, what are you worth, right? Okay. Yvette, how does 5G affect children with asthma? What can we use to protect them?
Well, it's more than just 5G. We have evidence that intermediate frequencies or dirty electricity can exacerbate asthma. There was a school in Wisconsin that had 37 students who had asthma and used inhalers daily. And when they cleaned up the dirty electricity in the school, I think only 3 of the students needed it, and only during exercise.
Wow.
And these same students needed to use their inhalers at home because they had dirty electricity in the home. So they stopped using them at school, but they continued using them in the home.
Excellent. And also, I would always just take a look at the children and see how well their bowel movements are, because asthma can be related to the large intestine a lot of times. Frank, what would be the reason the world won't admit 5G is catastrophic?
Well, certainly the telecom industry doesn't want to admit that because they're going to make a lot of money on this. Governments aren't admitting it because they don't know how to stop it, and because they're also making a lot of money. They sell the spectrum to the distributors, and so they're making millions to billions of dollars annually on this. So those who are going to benefit are very powerful right now, and because of that, they simply don't want to admit there's a problem. And I don't think they're going to admit it until we start having lawsuits where it hits their pocketbook in a very big way. And that includes government agencies as well. They shouldn't be exempt from any kind of legal action if they're not doing their job appropriately.
Yeah, truly. They're the biggest organized crime in our country. All right. Tom, does 5G have effects on oxygen?
Well, that's an interesting question. And there's evidence that at 60 gigahertz, so that's a very high frequency, oxygen absorbs at that frequency. And they're planning to use 60 gigahertz for a license-free use for Wi-Fi. So it's going to be, Wi-Fi on steroids, basically. We know that oxygen absorbs at that frequency. but we don't know how that's going to affect our bodies. There's some people that claim that it could interfere with oxygen binding to hemoglobin. And I've looked and I haven't been able to find any research on that as well. So we simply don't know how it's going to affect the living organism and with the oxygen circulating through the body. We simply don't know until they bring it out.
Rob, is there any truth that 5G can cause aggressive behavior in humans?
Want to answer that? Well, we know that once again, we're focusing on 5G, and 5G is very complex. There's very little we know about 5G, but it overlaps with microwave radiation. So we know quite a bit about microwave radiation. And we know that this radiation stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which puts us into a fight or flight. So if you're one of these fight people, it is going to make you more aggressive. And it's simply a physiological reaction where your body feels it's being attacked and it needs to protect itself. And it doesn't quite know how to do it because it doesn't know what's attacking it. And so this can be just a regular 24-hour-a-day feeling that some people have where they're, either afraid and they can't do anything, or they become very aggressive. And, everything's a really serious problem for them that they try to resolve by fighting, by becoming aggressive and angry and depressed and anxious, all of those things mixed together.
And there you have it. Like you just said, Magda, when people start feeling all this, so, it's like this, when you talk to somebody in your family, go, oh, come on, get away. And then all you need to say is, listen, all I want you to do is, when the dog gets angry or the cat won't let you pet it anymore, or your children are moody, or they can't do their homework, or they can't sleep at night, or they get headaches, or you start seeing problems that you've never seen before, then you'll understand the power of the invisible. And understand, everybody, it's not just a drip. That drip, like I said, if you were to leave and go away for 3 weeks and you had a drip in the sink and it wasn't able to go down the drain, it would flood the whole house. So eventually there'll be a weak link, and that weak link will break. And then guess what? You won't even, your doctor won't even know. Oh my gosh, this is such a mystery. We don't know why your child's like this, your husband's like this, your wife's like this. They just won't know, because unless they're trained, then they won't know how to treat it. They won't be trained for it. Yvette, I live right next to a very busy train lines. There are 8 tracks outside with a large pole on the side of the track. Well, I don't know if you guys would know this, but is it 5G, and how dangerous is this?
Well, it's hard to tell whether it's
Yeah.
5G or you'd have to look at the antenna. But with train tracks, there's also an issue of ground current. Sometimes the rails are electrified, and that can come into your home through plumbing, for example. And so if you're concerned about this, you can get your plumber or your electrician to come in and do a clamp around the plumbing and measure the amperage. And if there's any kind of amperage on it, if there's a current flowing through it, then you've got a ground current problem. And so with trains, that could be one of the health issues that people need to be concerned about.
Thank you.
And it's a proximity issue component as well. So it depends on how close she actually is to that potential antenna. The further away, the better.
Excellent. Joe, does 5G exposure cause COVID-type symptoms?
Well, there's been a lot of information connecting COVID-19 to 5G. And unfortunately, I think a lot of it is wrong. There's misinformation being presented. What we do know about the link between COVID-19 and not 5G necessarily, 5G, but once again, microwave frequencies, is that when we're exposed to this radiation, it impairs our immune system. And so if we have an impaired immune system, it's going to make us much more susceptible to any kind of pathological effect, from bacteria to viruses to other microorganisms. And so that is a connection that's well documented. But whether or not, and we're doing some research in the United States, we found that if in some states 5G has already been rolled out, and it hasn't been rolled out in other states. And so what we did is we looked at the COVID attributed deaths and the COVID attributed cases in states with and without 5G millimeter wave technology. And we found that the COVID rates were much higher, about at least doubling in the states with 5G activated. So there could be a causal relationship. Right now, all we know is there's an association.
Great. Cassandra, if they've already started replacing the 4G towers with 5G, how are we supposed to stop this? Come on, girls. Let's do this.
How do we stop this?
It's education. It's focusing on having as many things wired versus the wireless, because there's a lot of attention about 5G, which is really great because it's getting people's attention. It's making them wake up that there might be a problem. We should insist upon choice. So talking to our local representatives and saying, you know, we need to know exactly what's happening, because everybody is really wound up about 5G. How many communities actually already have 5G? And like Magda said, is it the lower frequencies or is it the millimeter wave component? So finding out exactly what your community has and what it doesn't have. So the more information that you have, that informs your decision as to what's the next step. Getting some meters, measuring as much as you can, and minimizing as much as you can. There's a number of places where Magda and I visited where they have a cell tower outside of their house. The highest exposure for that family was actually inside their house from a cordless telephone. So again, focusing on what you can control, really eliminate it within your house, and then work on the outside environment and say, you know, I want choice. I want wired everywhere as possible. So there are some aspects where you have to have a wireless component to get it from, you know, over a difficult topography or, you know, a long distance. But wiring it to the house, wiring it to the buildings. A lot of places in Canada actually have fiber optics, insisting on the use of those fiber optics and wiring it within the home and right up to the door of the home. So again, it's that not getting the fear factor. It's got the attention of us. So finding out what the actual details are and moving forward and wiring wherever you can.
And ideally, the last mile, or in Canada, the last kilometer, should be wired. It's as simple as that. That would keep us far enough away from the radiation to minimize health problems.
So example we have for that is at schools, they were saying, oh, we have to have Wi-Fi because then it's equal access for these rural communities. But what you want to do is you can bring it to the rural community in a wireless way. But like Magda said, wire it to the building, wire it that last wire, because that increases your distance from those radiating devices and it lowers your exposure. So anytime you can wire it and increase your distance from it, you're going to have a much lower exposure. So we can do that. If we were to actually just do that everywhere, the exposure would be so much lower.
You know, it's hard to even listen to some of this stuff because you guys are just like so logical, and it's just common sense. But anyways, okay. Here's Jennifer. Should you unplug your microwave when not in use of them? I wanted to ask you a question, Magda. Wasn't this about you could test your microwave by putting a phone in it and then calling it, and if it actually rings, that means it's leaking radiation. And then the other thing is, I don't think I'd ever want to have a microwave in my home. What do you think?
Well, I do have a microwave and I use it to heat water every once in a while or to do a few things. It denatures food to a certain degree, so the nutrition isn't going to be as great if you microwave your food. However, when a microwave is not on, it's not radiating. There's nothing, it's perfectly safe. As soon as you turn it on, it gives off a really intense signal that should be contained within the microwave. But one of the things we found is that most microwaves leak. And so before I knew anything about this, I would, sit in front of the microwave and watch, my cold coffee, go round and round. It was the worst thing I could possibly do. Your eyes are very, very sensitive to this. Now, if I microwave anything, and sometimes it's a heating pad, to put in my bed as I get older, not using electric blankets, but using, something not wired. If you, so when I microwave something, I actually walk out of the room. I walk as far away from the microwave as possible to minimize my exposure. But putting your cell phone, if you get cell phone reception in your kitchen, and if you put your cell phone in your microwave oven, close the door and phone it. If it rings, it means your microwave leaks. And so you shouldn't be in front of it when you're heating food or cooking something.
Thank you. And if I could add something about when you said about wires in the bed. So when I was much younger and I was just new in practice, my father would always use an electric heating blanket, right? And believe it or not, we told him, stop using it, stop using it. It can cause a lot of neurological damage, okay? And it wasn't like 3 years after that and he got leukemia. Now, I'm not saying it was just the electric blanket because, he had not the greatest habits in the world, but that was one way to rev it up.
Well, the frequency that you get from an electric blanket is 60 hertz. And that has been that magnetic field. It gives off a very high magnetic field. And magnetic fields have been associated with leukemia, with brain tumors, with breast cancer, and other cancers. So there could very well be a causal connection there.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to be harping on, I promise this will be the last time I say it, but if we had a government that really cared, then we wouldn't be selling electric blankets or electric heating pads or electric anything. So right from the smallest thing to the big thing, if you don't take a look under your nose and what's going on around you and take massive personal action, then, it's buyer beware. You got to watch out for yourself. You got to watch out for your family. Nobody else is going to do it. Okay. All right.
If I can add one thing that they shouldn't be selling baby monitors and soothers, two-way microwave transmitting devices where they put the soother inside an infant's mouth so it can tell your cell phone what the baby's temperature is. I wish I was joking. We actually ordered one so we could measure it, and it was on back order. It took us so long to get it because they were sold out. They also have these little, what's the equivalent to a baby Fitbit. They should not be allowed to sell these devices for infants. It's absolutely criminal. Magda's actually informed the government of that 15 years ago, saying that these baby monitors shouldn't be used as wireless baby monitors.
And the diapers.
Yes, and the diapers. They have a chip in the diapers that tells you when Johnny goes pee. It doesn't work for Johnny going poop, but for pee, it can tell your cell phone. They just need to figure out how way to get the cell phone to change the diaper.
There it is. So understand something, and I'm going to say it again. The government has no morals, never did, that I know of, at least since I've been around. I always thought, when I was being raised, I just thought, my gosh, they work so hard to try to do things, but never anything works for them. They're so dysfunctional. And I used to think about that when I was younger. Why is it so difficult to do the right thing? But then I thought, this is way above me, But the reality, it's really quite below me. Now, the other thing I want to say is that we actually had some people here at the clinic, and understand something. The son is older, and he was wearing a Fitbit. So I just want to say that it's not good for anybody. So he has his Fitbit on, and he's showing all different types of symptoms. And I go, get rid of that Fitbit. Well, guess what? First of all, when they took the Fitbit away from him, he was having a tantrum, right? Because it's very addictive, It's like this, the addiction. And that's even a bad addiction. But guess what? After 2 days, his whole personality changed. All right? Okay, so where are we here? Joe, does it matter if you have a 5G phone or not? 5G goes through the air waves like TV. I'm not sure what he means.
But I don't think there's any frequencies that communicate.
Okay. Well, in Canada, we haven't, the millimeter spectrum for 5G hasn't been auctioned yet. So in Canada, theoretically, we shouldn't have any millimeter waves unless they're using the 60 gigahertz for Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think he's
But
from the United States, so
okay,
most of these
yeah,
questions are from U.S. Okay.
right, yeah. So in the United States, they do have 5G in certain states. I don't know how compatible the phones are yet for the millimeter frequencies, but they're probably using some of the lower frequencies right now.
Yeah, my son said in Canada they just released the 5G phone, and it's being made really inexpensive, like no, so that you can get it, to help
Right.
people
The,
to start using it.
the
Connie,
only
go ahead.
sorry, the only problem with the new phones is there's not even a port to charge it. They're going to wirelessly charge them.
What?
So yeah, so as consumers, we need to insist upon a wired option.
Oh,
That's what they
Jesus.
do. So nobody's going to buy these new wireless charging phones.
Holy.
And remember, Sheena mentioned that you can hook up your phone to the internet,
Yes.
but you can hook it up if it doesn't have any ports. So you really need a port in order to use it in a wired fashion so that you're not being exposed to microwaves.
So we
Okay,
need
so
to
did you just say what you said? Did you just say that there's no plug-in for the new 5G phones?
Yeah, that's what I've just heard it from my son, who's like, it just was released yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
And we need to, they said, you're not going to like this phone, Mom, because there's actually not even a port for it. So they want to charge it wirelessly.
Yeah, okay, well, they're just evil, and that's that. And it's not about convenience. And understand, everybody, that you know what? You're going to be able to tell how much people love themselves in your family. They're just going to go, well, and the younger kids will. They think they're going to live forever. They're going to say things like, Mom, you may not like this, but I do. The reality is that they will start having the same, they will have the same effects that older people get as well because it's going to come on strong. You can't get hit on all angles. Okay, Connie, are the cheaper priced RF detectors as effective as the expensive ones?
Well, the cheaper priced detectors work. They will give you a sense of a detector rather than a meter differs. So a meter gives you a number that should be calibrated. The meter should be calibrated. So there's a certain error for any kind of reading that you have. With a detector like the ones we showed you yesterday, there's no number to it, but you get different ranges of intensity. And for most people, that's all they need. Unless you're being hired to do a job and you have to appear in court, you can use one of these meters or detectors.
And the newer ones are actually quite sensitive, so they're and quite accurate compared to the more expensive ones.
Yeah, I've got that exact one. We actually have a few of them. So if people in Canada want to get one, we bought them just so that we'd have them on hand for people to make it easier so they could get their hands on it. Or just go, what are they called? Safe?
Safe and sound.
Safe and Sound. That's the company. Okay.
It's
Safe Living Technologies.
Okay. Safe Living Technologies. Layla, the people that are rolling out the 5G, how do they expect it to not harm them? Do they have a special sauce recipe to be protected?
Well, a lot of the workers that are installing antennas are actually becoming quite ill. Sometimes when they install an antenna, if they go up on a pole and there are other antennas on that tower, for example, ideally those antennas should be turned off while someone is working on them, whether they're fixing them or installing new antennas. That isn't done all the time. And there's, I think, at least one case in British Columbia where a worker stepped in front of a live antenna for just a few minutes and he was fried. And he won the legal case. So, the radiation immediately near the antenna is extremely harmful. Now, what the telecom companies are doing is that they're hiring about 3 companies removed for installation. And so when someone installs an antenna, it's not Rogers, it's not Bell, it's some other, several companies removed. And so when the legal case comes up, it's not TELUS or Bell or Rogers that gets sued. It's the company that hired the workers in the first place.
One of the issues that's turning it to be quite a problem is there's a little bit of backlash about the visuals of these antennas. So they're actually putting them inside buildings, inside closets sometimes. And the workers right next, the antenna is there and their desk is on the other side of the wall. So like Magda was saying, that proximity piece is ridiculous as to how they're trying to address concerns from the public.
And when people complained about, the visuals outside, they convert them into trees that look pretty artificial, and there's no birds that land on them. But they hide them in flagpoles, church steeples, wherever they can hide them. But they're still radiating, and the real problem is not the visual, it's the radiation.
Right. And you know what she was asking even more so? She was wanting to know how the elite who are pushing this, how are they protecting themselves? Because they must be.
Well, a lot of the schools their kids go to they don't even have computers in some cases because they recognize screen time as addictive and not terribly healthy. So there are, in Silicon Valley, for example, if you work in this industry, you're going to protect your family. And you're not going to allow them to be exposed if you have young children, especially.
Well, there you have it, everybody. So a little bit of egg on our face. Rob, does radiation like 5G affect fertility? Okay.
Well, the answer to that is yes. Microwave radiation, there's been at least 24 studies now showing it adversely affects sperm. The sperm doesn't live as long, it's deformed, it doesn't swim as quickly, doesn't swim in the right direction. There's all sorts of problems with the sperm. There's also evidence that women during their first trimester might miscarry if they're exposed to this radiation. And the third bit of evidence is behavioral problems with the offspring. So those three things I think are very, very critical for reproduction.
Thank you.
Now, one of the things I recommend is that more and more people are going to fertility clinics to get help. And probably the last thing they tell you at the fertility clinic, if nothing else works that they're doing, is, oh, by the way, don't keep your cell phone in your pocket for the men, right? But they don't tell you that right at the beginning. They tell you that a little while later. The good news is that men produce fresh sperm every 3 months. And so if you want to get pregnant, it's really important to have a 3-month, tech-free or certainly a microwave-reduced exposure. And that should improve the quality of the sperm and should benefit reproduction as well.
Great. Do you remember how people used to say that human beings were the most intelligent species in the universe? I'm not sure who said that. Okay. Let me see. Missy, wearing mask is to weaken the immune system. When they turn on the 5G, it hit the weakest of the people, right?
Not quite certain what the question is asking.
I don't know. I think she's thinking that if you wear a mask, it cuts your oxygen. They turned on the 5G, so then people would fall or faint. Or remember when that was on?
Yeah, there's some controversy about how useful masks are. Some people claim that they will protect you. Other people claim they're absolutely neutral. And some people claim they're actually harmful. I'm not a virologist and I'm not an expert in this field, but to me, just common sense is that if you have a microbe that's smaller than the pores on the mask, so if you have a mask that has, this kind of pores on it, anything the size of a pea will come right through. And you're partially blocking your ability to breathe. You're rebreathing your own air and you're increasing your carbon dioxide levels. And certainly for people who have any respiratory or heart problems, I would really question whether the mask is actually benefiting them and whether they should be wearing it or not.
Thank you. Rob asks, is there anything positive about 5G?
I think the way they're trying to sell it is speed. You're going to have very fast download and upload speeds. They're saying, above 1 gigabit per second. I have fiber optics coming to my home office, and I have 500 megabits, so half a gigabit per second upload and download. If it was twice as fast, I wouldn't notice it. So for me, this is certainly fast enough. We don't need it. Now, with the faster speeds of download and interaction, what they're claiming is that you can have driverless cars. Now, in order to have a driverless car, the car has to have antennas and sensors and transmitters all over the car. So you know whether someone is close to you in the front or close to you in the back, or someone is beside you. And so the amount of radiation that we're going to be exposing drivers to is absolutely going to be horrendous. And since the car has windows, a lot of that will penetrate through the glass. And my guess is if we start using driverless cars, we won't be able to have driver cars, because those people are going to be too sick in order to drive. They won't be able to think clearly. They won't be able to react clearly to someone stepping off the curb in front of them. It affects our mental functioning. So once we start going down that route, I think it's going to make driving extremely difficult for a lot of people who are not now sensitive, but certainly for those who are sensitive.
So even with the Tesla car, we know that the Tesla car, when you buy it, if you don't ask for a protective electromagnetic screen around it, then we know that there's a lot of high radiation in that. Meanwhile, you're buying the car thinking that you're helping the environment, but you're destroying your own. How's that?
Well, there's a number of people who I know have Tesla cars, and they can't drive them. They're too sick as soon as they go inside them. The magnetic field inside a Tesla car is extremely high. Elon Musk should know this, that you have to shield against the magnetic field. And indeed, any electric car has a high magnetic field right around the battery and the cable that connects the battery to the engine. And normally this is in the back seat, which is where we put our infants. And so you can take your infant on the infant seat and put them right on top of the battery, and they're getting, exposed to magnetic fields, really high magnetic fields, as long as they're in that car. So very unwise to do it without shielding.
And those cars should have the wireless components, the ability to shut everything off. So it's not looking for your phone, it's not looking for everything all the time. You want the ability in all of these cars to be able to eliminate the wireless component.
And do we have that ability, or do you have to get someone to go in and do that, or can we even do that?
Yeah, a lot of the vehicles do have that ability.
Okay.
Sometimes even when you don't have the ability, you actually take the fuse out that powers it. So that's the thing. Everybody's like, how do we do this? How do we do it? You disconnect the power source. So there's lots of different ways that you can easily do it. You just have to have a little bit of knowledge, but those manufacturers should be encouraged to give people the option. Like when I go into a hotel, I make it similar, that it's a non-smoking room versus a smoking room. We want a low EMF room versus a Wi-Fi room, because people should have the choice. You should have the choice whether you're exposed to this toxin or not, and you wanna give that to your clientele.
Absolutely. Magda, the last time that we lectured at Total Health, right, in Toronto, I had to pay an extra $150 for 3 days to have a low EMF room. But I paid it because I wasn't going to do it, because every time I would go to that hotel every year, by the third day, I had a migraine that was just taking me down. So, yeah.
And also where they hold the Total Health show, it's a toxic environment. It's a total health show, and yet they hold it in a toxic environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hope that everybody out here is really listening with this with common sense. Elon Musk is not your friend, okay? Tesla car my butt, okay? All right? He's not your friend, all right? He also wants to take a piece of bone out of the top of your head and wire up your brain. But then you wouldn't have to worry, would you? Because then you could just be connected to the car, and then there it goes, right there. All right. And then we all want to jump in a ship and go to Mars with Elon Musk, like it's so beautiful up there too. You mean the whole thing is just ridiculous, and people are getting ridiculous. You know that if you even go to the airport, you can see these little Martians on this big screen, and they're talking, and there's this thing. The last time I was in Toronto, and these Martians, and it's talking about, the next journey to Mars. I mean, why don't we just stay here on this planet where it's so beautiful and start standing up and protecting ourselves and thinking that we need to go to a planet that doesn't even have life on it. And if it does, we're going to struggle. All right. What about solar panels? This is Joe. What about solar panels with smart meter? What can be done to minimize dirty exposure?
Well, smart meters and solar panels both contribute to what's called dirty electricity. And you can filter the dirty electricity. However, the solar panels, the dirty electricity coming from them is really quite powerful. And what I recommend is that if you want to have a solar panel on your home, then use the energy either to heat water or to service direct current appliances, which you can buy. So if you go into a regular store and you buy a washing machine or a stove, it's going to be alternating current. But you can buy them for recreational vehicles. And so if you're taking direct current solar power and you're powering a direct current appliance, no problem, no dirty electricity. The only time you generate dirty electricity is when you convert that direct current to alternating current. So there are light bulbs you can buy, so you can power part of your home with direct current without experiencing the dirty power. And using filters for your smart meter is probably the only way that I know of that you can minimize that from your electric, gas, or water smart meter.
Thank you. Isabel, when all the satellites are in space, will 5G Fimo antennas still be useful?
Some of the satellites are intended for 5G. So they're going to be part of the 5G system.
Joe, are infrared saunas safe?
It depends on the type of infrared sauna you have. There are infrared saunas that unfortunately you can get that are very inexpensive from China. And the problems with them is they give off a very high magnetic field, and the material they use, the wood that they use, they glue together with toxic glue. And so you're sitting in one of these inexpensive saunas and you're inhaling toxic air because it's heating up the glue and it's vaporizing it, getting it into the air. There's one company I know of called Saunas. They're located here in Ontario, and I met them at the Total Health Show quite a few years ago now. And I remember going in and measuring their sauna with my meters. And I asked them if they would turn the sauna on so I could get a reading. And they told me the sauna was on. And so their saunas are incredibly clean. They use wood in Canada. They don't use toxic glue. They're quite costly, but they're going to benefit your health enormously. So those are the saunas that I recommend people purchase.
Saunas, everybody. Thank you, Magda. Joan, my air conditioner is 1 year old. I noticed that our home runs perfect at 77 degrees, but periodically throughout the day it gets warm and wants to place it down to 74. Would this be a sign there is a smart meter attached outside to my house? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah,
I don't think so. We'll just go with I don't think so. Dimitri, what kind of meter do I need to buy to be able to use it in court? I don't know if the court would actually listen, would they, Magda?
Well, there are more and more hearings in court dealing with exposure to this.
Okay.
But you'd have to buy a professional meter, which are several $1,000s in price. You'd have to get one that's been recently calibrated. And ideally, you should get a professional building biologist or electrician or someone who knows how to do readings appropriately. So, for example, if you're concerned that the levels in your house are high and they're coming from outdoor or you're not generating them, then you have to turn all the appliances off in your home to make sure you're not contributing. And these are things that people wouldn't necessarily think of. So it's best to hire a professional who can present the information as an expert witness, have them use their technology rather than using your own. You're likely to be much more successful.
Thank you, doctor. Okay, Joan. So I think what I'm hearing is the earpiece I'm using, that Bluetooth, is dangerous to use, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay. Lisa, Magda, can you please tell us your website?
I have several websites. One is www.magdahavas.com, and that's about the harmful effects of electromagnetic pollution. And then I have one, www.theroselab.com, and that's dealing with healing energies, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, light therapy, that sort of thing. And Sheena has a website,
electrosensitivesociety.com.
Beautiful. And when we finish the show, I'd like you to mention that again if you would. Okay? That would be great. Melinda, what are the main symptoms of being electrosensitive?
There are a number of them. You can have headaches, heart palpitations, asthma, breathing problems, skin problems, headaches, inability to recover from things. Like I've had a woman that was using a wireless keyboard and she had a car accident and hurt her wrist and it would not heal, would not heal, would not heal. She got rid of the cordless or the wireless keyboard and she recovered. Brain fog, inability to concentrate, sleeping problems. On the electrosensitivesociety.com, you have a whole list of symptoms about what different people have, and also the precursors as to what predisposes you to becoming electrohypersensitive. And one person said, how can it create all of those symptoms? Like, what's up with that? And it seems to be like the weak link for you, whatever your own weaknesses are or your own immune system, how it's responding. So it's dependent on a number of factors.
There's two very odd kind of symptoms. One is nosebleeds, particularly in children, and the other is bedwetting and nighttime urination. So children who are electrically sensitive will wet their bed when they're exposed to some of this energy. And Sheena has a story about that, but also older people, my age and younger and older, they would urinate quite frequently during the night. They might get up 3-4 times. And once they clean up the dirty electricity and the microwaves in their home, they might get up once or not at all. So it really affects your bladder and your urinary system. But Sheena has a story about kids and what happens to them.
So there are children that they'll bedwet at night and you filter out the dirty electricity and they stop wetting the bed, and the mom took the child to a hotel which has lots of dirty electricity and the child wet the bed. So the next time she went to the hotel, she brought filters and filtered out the dirty electricity and didn't wet the bed in the hotel. So it really is. And I've met a number of people. They said, my son just all of a sudden started wetting the bed. And I asked them if there was anything technologically that has changed. And she said, well, we just got Wi-Fi, but that's the only thing that's been different. So again, and also people putting that Wi-Fi on a timer at night, really eliminating their nighttime exposure is absolutely critical. Better to wire it. You can use these broadband over power line adapters where you get 2 of these adapters. Then there's a whole bunch of different ones. It's called broadband over power line, and they have an Ethernet connection on the bottom, and you plug in the Ethernet cable to the adapter and plug it into your wired router, and that puts that Ethernet connection on the wiring of your home. And then you go to where you want to use your computer in a wired fashion. You plug it into the electrical outlet, it accesses the Ethernet connection, you plug your Ethernet cable into here and then plug it into your computer and you have access to internet. This does produce some dirty electricity, so when you're not using it, unplug it or filter the dirty electricity with filters. But I think it's better than having Wi-Fi all the time, because it's the accessibility that you want throughout your home. And again, there's little adapters. You can just Google whatever adapter you have, how to connect it to Ethernet. and you can plug in and wire your phones, your iPods, your iPads, and connect to internet. So you can iMessage, you can voice over internet speaking, and you can surf the internet and Skype and all that kind of stuff. So you can have a huge amount of access. You can't do a cellular call through well, you can through the internet. You just have to change how you access it, but you can definitely use all of this technology in a wired fashion.
Thank you. Bobby, can the EMF protection fabric Faraday from Amazon be trusted? And is it a proper protection if placed around routers or sewn onto cases for cell phones? Thanks.
Well, there's different qualities of the silver fabric that you can get. The denser the mesh, the more silver that's being used and the more protective it is. So they can vary from about 60% reduction to about 95% reduction. And so what I recommend is that you get the most expensive you can possibly order or afford that has the tightest mesh, because it's the mesh size that determines what gets eliminated. Now you can use them for your phones, and you can actually buy them commercially now where you have a little pocket that you put your phone in. Part of it is open, so your phone can still get a message through, but when it's next to your body, it's actually shielding your body. And we tried putting the fabric around routers, and it doesn't work all that well if the router is very powerful. So my recommendation is don't waste your money trying to cover your wireless router, wire the router, and you don't have to have any problems anymore.
And there's an eco-friendly router from Europe that only, it's on demand, so it only radiates in a wireless fashion when you're using it. And so having that option of turning the wireless on and off is really important too.
There's also baby monitors you can buy in Europe that are on-demand baby monitors, which means you've got the monitor next to the crib, nothing's being emitted, the infant's sleeping, the infant wakes up, starts to cry, activates the monitor, lets the mother know, and then she can come and take care of the infant. We can't buy those in North America, and we can't have them shipped to North America either. It seems like the Federal Communication Commission said that these devices, whether it's the cordless phone that's just on demand or the baby monitor that's on demand, because it interferes with FCC regulations, which is, in my mind, absolute nonsense. They're actually energy-saving devices because they're not radiating, so they're not using any energy. They're just on a standby mode. So if we could just get these approved in North America and manufactured in North America, it would reduce exposure enormously in homes all over the country.
Yeah, it's a shame that you actually have to fight for your health and they lie to your face. Alina, does cell phone use have an effect on tinnitus?
Yes, definitely. Not on every case of tinnitus, but over and over again, that's one of the most common symptoms. One client that we work with started taking taurine, and it's reduced her tinnitus exponentially. And I've talked to a few doctors that use that as well. But again, it's reducing the exposure. It's not putting the Band-Aid on it, but reducing the exposure. And then if the tinnitus is still there, going to the other different supplementations. But yes, it's one of the very common issues. And a lot of people can hear the different frequencies. Sometimes people that have the amalgam fillings, it exacerbates that tinnitus and different head pain. So again, it's working with a practitioner, looking at what your precursors to exacerbate your exposure are, and then addressing those systematically.
Thank you. Jerry, how do we dial down home routers?
Yep. You can actually call your provider and actually have them walk through it. You can also just Google whatever your router is, how to turn down the power. So you can just do it just like you turn on and off the wireless functions on your computers. You can turn them all down. So Google is incredibly helpful with that. You can ask for a visual, you can ask for step-by-step instructions. So just whatever your router type is, just Google, how do I power down? How do I reduce the power output of my blank router?
Jeff, if we show radiation sickness from 5G, can we sue the government?
You can sue the government, or or try to sue the government, or the telecom industry, whether it's 5G or microwaves or any other kind of radiation that they're generating. However, there are certain countries and laws in certain provinces where you can't sue government officers. And I think that needs to be changed if it's present in their location, whatever their location is. So you can certainly attempt to do that. And, these people who are making decisions that can potentially affect the health of thousands, in some cases, millions of people. And if they haven't done their homework and they don't know what the science is showing, and they're simply going, la, 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 I don't want to know, I think they're liable. I think they should be sued. And they shouldn't be protected because they're a government employee or because they're an elected official.
Just know this, though, that strength in numbers, right? Strength in
Mhm.
numbers. So if you can get a group of people together, that's the way you want to do it. You don't want to be the only man standing here and trying to come up against them. Magda.
And I think
Oh, go ahead,
there's going
Magda. Go ahead.
more, there's going to be more class action suits. Certainly, we've been talking to a lot of lawyers, and they're becoming intrigued by this and quite concerned. And they're willing to take on class action cases. And once those start, the industry is going to be forking out billions of dollars because ultimately these class action suits are going to win.
Mhm.
The evidence is just overwhelming.
Magda, I have very important question. Can the house wireless home alarm cause any harm?
A wireless home alarm? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been contacted by a number of companies saying we'd like to, we're going to be in your neighborhood. We'd like to, give you a break on installing an alarm system. And the first thing I ask is it wired or wireless? And they say wireless. And I say, no, thank you. Because I don't want to be exposed to that radiation to protect my home.
And again, getting one of those little meters helps you with that. And even on those different devices that you're going to get that block things and stuff, measure it before and then block whatever you're going to block and then measure it again so you're actually getting the effect that you think you are, because that's a really important thing. And like Magda said, to try and determine whether you have a device inside your home that's radiating or not. Like I was saying, if you disconnect the power, so you go into your home, you get this meter, and you turn off the electrical power to the house, like you totally disconnect it, and just see if that changes the reading on your meter. Because if it reduces, then there's something in your home that's wirelessly radiating that's contributing to your exposure. If it doesn't change, then chances are that there's an external source of that wireless radiation. There are a couple of exceptions, because sometimes things have batteries. Sometimes it's a water meter that doesn't go off when you shut off the power. But if you have a little bit of that fabric and a little bit of you're a little bit of a detective with this meter, but it can give you a huge amount of information in deciding whether you bring things into your home or not, like lighting different devices that you wouldn't necessarily think are going to radiate sometimes do. So that's why it's so important to have one of these, and even sharing it with your family and your friends. I have a number of teachers that share it and they just pass it all around, or nurses, with whatever group.
Thank you. Rita, it seems that, it seems with nearly all emerging technologies, there is a part of society saying it will be our downfall, yet we are still here. How can we know which technologies truly to stay away from?
Well, this has been a problem ever since the Romans started, drinking wine out of their, lead soaked goblets, right? And in the past, we've done a lot of damage. Lead pollution was a very serious issue in the air in North America because we had leaded gasoline. And when you studied inner city kids who were exposed to this, their blood levels were, astronomical, and many of them had learning disabilities. So, we've done a lot of damage, but we've corrected that. So it seems like it just takes us a couple of, not a couple of decades, about 40 years in order to resolve the issue. And part of that is the industry deliberately providing misinformation and shedding doubt on a lot of things. Doubt is their product. was one of the slogans. It's a title of a book, but it was one of the slogans of the tobacco industry. You know, they didn't have to prove tobacco smoking was safe. They just had to put enough doubt in the mind of people to say, well, you know, Uncle Charles is 90 and he smoked all his life, so it can't possibly be harmful. Well, Uncle Charles might have special genes that protected him, but Joe down the road, who died at 25 because of lung cancer and smoking, you know, was a different story. So we've made mistakes over and over and over again with different products, mostly chemicals. Asbestos, for example, it was everywhere. It was in cereal boxes, for example. I mean, they were trying to get rid of this stuff so that they could make money. You know, you put it in a cereal box and it'll hold the box together that much better. But that means it gets into our food, it gets into, you know, our lungs as we breathe it. And so we've learned a lot, but we're just not responding fast enough.
Thank you. And you want to know something? Every time that they used something that's toxic in something, there was always a better alternative, one that was healthy, that would never hurt us. Because guess what? Don't really care what people think anymore. There's an elite group, and it's the same group that was in the tobacco, which is in the chemical, which is in the 5G, which is in the Wi-Fi, which is everything, which is in the vaccination. They're the same group still trying to poison us because they get off on it. Now, they live on our pain and suffering. And if we don't want to wake up to this, okay, but listen, I understand why, because you've been programmed, okay, not to love and honor and respect yourself. And I know this is not what the show's about, but the deal is if you totally loved and honored and respected yourself, you wouldn't take anything low vibrational and bring it into your mouth or your house or into your family. And you would stand guard. Somebody's going to bloody well have to wake up here. You know, we can't be all cutesy, nicey nice, okay? Because it's not going to do it. And if you want to do your homework, you're going to find out that the same people that poisoned us with all the poisons and the same people that get us to do their wars and everything else are the same people that are doing this. It's never changed. It's the same families. So let's just tell it like it is, and why be scared? Let's just put it out in the open. Sandy, are MRI scans harmful?
Do you want to talk about that? Go ahead. With an MRI scan, you've got two types of exposure. One is a very strong magnetic field, a direct current magnetic field, and one is a radio frequency that's sort of exposed, and then it stops, and then it looks at your body to find out how your body is reacting to it. People who are electrically hypersensitive have great difficulty with this technology. Some that I've spoken to tell me that after they've had an MRI scan, they're confused, they're dizzy, they can't think straight. They have to wait, half an hour before they can drive, or they have to have someone drive them to a clinic if they're extremely sensitive. And a growing number of people are simply won't go for an MRI scan because they don't want the exposure and they don't want to get sick from it. So we've got to be very careful who has a scan and to make it as safe as possible for them. Now, Sheena does a lot of work in hospitals these days, and she's actually trying to make hospitals safer environments for sick people, and she's had considerable success. So maybe you'd like to just mention that?
Yeah. And again, it's that awareness, is educating the health and safety officers of the hospital and having them get a few different meters so they can document what's happening within a hospital. And again, it's really trying to control the devices that you have within your hospital. So some of the hospitals that I've measured, the cell tower companies actually put boosters, so cell tower antennas, within the hospital, just because they want to always let everybody have as much cell access as possible. So that's very difficult then for a hospital then to accommodate somebody who's EHS. And, we'd have to resort to perhaps blocking it or shielding that radiating device. So really important to actually have control over the radiating devices that you have within your hospital. And again, it's very difficult too, because like Magda said, some people really react to it, but sometimes it's essential for the diagnostic component. Them, really taking a lot of vitamin C and glutathione and different aspects to help their bodies deal with that types of exposure. But it's not an easy decision for so many people, because like Magda said, it can really, really make a lot of people sick. So really trying to weigh out the benefits versus the risk. And just hospitals, the patient experience is the introduction into accommodating someone in a hospital. So you contact the patient experience department and say, you know, I have somebody who's electrohypersensitive coming into your hospital, whether it's for a day visit, an appointment, an assessment, and finding out what they can do to minimize their exposure. And if you contact me at the Electrosensitive Society, I'll help you. I phone doctors' offices, I speak to physicians, I help with the different hospital visits. So if you ever need that kind of help, I can help advocate for you.
Okay, so everybody, are you thinking what I'm thinking? That we've got two amazing women here? That's right. So it takes a team, but I mean, I really hope that they're going to come back in January because there's more questions that we are even going to get through today. We've got just a few more that I will do, but I can't take any more, everyone. But look, maybe we can talk to them before they get away today, and maybe we can get them to come back early January. Okay? Star, where do you get the filters?
Do we give names? The filters are actually manufactured, or they're distributed from the United States, and the company is called StetzerElectric.com, STETZER Electric for our American listeners and viewers. And they're what, about $35, $40?
American or 42, I think, Canadian.
Okay, they're about $35 American, and you need several filters for your home. And one of the things I highly recommend is they get a meter. So it's called a microsurge meter that measures the dirty power, and all you do is plug it into an electric outlet. It gives you a number. You plug the filter in, and the number will come down. And you want that number to come down to less than 40. It's a really simple thing. They'll walk you through it, tell you how to install them, or you can get someone to install it for you. It goes either way. So, and you might need 8, 10, 20 filters in a home, depending on how much dirty electricity you have, how large your home is.
And what was the company called again?
Stetzer Electric, STETZER Electric.
Thank you.
.com.
Belinda, how about pets in home? What type of symptoms will they show? Thank you.
Well, you know, I worked with a woman in Toronto who told me that after she filtered her home, her pets started behaving better. They were much more friendly, much less aggressive, much less irritable. So they basically have the same symptoms we have. Some of them experience pain, for example. You can see them as they walk. It's almost like they're arthritic. And then you put them into a clean environment, or you put them outside where they're not exposed, and they do really well. So pets react virtually the same as people. And unfortunately, a lot of pets are coming down with cancers these days. I'm really kind of shocked. And I think someone needs to look into that. Pets in cities, dogs, cats, budgies, all sorts of things are coming down with cancers that weren't common, you know, just 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely. Kim, my husband doesn't buy into the smart meter being an issue. What is your thought on smart meters, and how can I persuade him?
Well, first of all, there are different types of smart meters. There's a type of smart meter that's called a mesh system. And these are probably the worst smart meters you can have. If you have a mesh smart meter on your home, if you're part of a mesh network, it means your smart meter is communicating with all the other smart meters in your community before the information is sent to the utility. So the amount of radiation you have is almost constant. The smart meter is working, it stops for a second, it starts working again, it stops. So you're constantly exposed. There's another type of smart meter. It's not a mesh system. And that means your smart meter will only communicate with the utility and back. So you might get a ping, you know, a few times a day. And those are smart meters I don't particularly worry about, except for the dirty power they generate. But if you're part of a mesh system, strongly encourage you to contact your utility, put a screen around your smart meter in a way that it protects you inside your home, and make sure you filter it as well. And if you get one of these inexpensive meters, you can determine which smart meter you have, whether it's a mesh system or not.
Thank you. You know, I was dealing with this when I moved into this house, and I was teaching a class at the time. So there's, I live in West Kelowna, then there's East Kelowna. There's just a bridge in between. So on this side, there's BC Hydro. On that side, there's Fortis. So on that side, if you are on Fortis, you pay $15 a month, and then they'll come out and check it, and they'll turn off your meter. If you live on this side, BC Hydro, which is more government oriented, regulated, I fought with them for probably 2 months, and they would ignore my phone calls, and you'll get a call back, and then it would be like a recording going, "We hope that you liked our service, and if you'd like to," then it went through this whole thing. Press 1 if you thought it was good, or 3 if it wasn't. And I kept saying I wanted to talk to somebody that I could see about getting it unhooked. Well, that wasn't going to happen. They already knew the game, and they weren't going to let me talk. But if you live in Kelowna, in East Kelowna, on the other side of the bridge, and you're with Fortis, you can pay them $15 a month to turn off your meter. Todd, Elon Musk recently unveiled a new project called Neuralink. Its purpose is to connect the human brain to computers wireless at an ultra-high bandwidth. The idea seems incredible. However, I am extremely concerned about the health concerns. What is your opinion?
Well, I don't know very much. Anything about Neuralink? I don't know very much about it. I mean, part of it intrigues me, and part of it horrifies me. That if we're going to connect something to our brain, actually something to our brain to control our brainwave activity, I'd be very careful. In China, they have these headbands for students to wear that have a little light here. And what they're doing, everyone in the classroom would have one of these headbands on. And the headbands are measuring brainwave activity. They send the information to the teacher's iPad, and the information tells the teacher whether the student is focused, unfocused, or whether the device is turned off. The teacher then sends that information to the parent's cell phone. So the amount of microwave radiation you have in these rooms with all of these kids wearing these headbands, with the messages going to the teacher and the teachers cell phoning all the parents and leaving text messages. I'd love to go into one of those classrooms and measure it, because I would expect it's going to be very high. And if it does interfere with learning, which is one of the things we're told, then it's the worst place to put it, in a classroom where you're trying to teach children, right? So anything to do with the brain or the heart or the body that's electromagnetic and that gives off radiation, I'd be very wary about.
So you have a device for these children that's trying to document whether they're focused or not, but the actual presence and the proximity of close to their brain prevents them from being able to focus, and then they're penalized for it because the information is sent to their parents. It's not a good system.
I'd say it's called child abuse myself, but then what do I know? Okay, so we have 3 more questions, and everybody, just so you know, like I said, we'll check with them in a few minutes and see if they'll come back early January. Hang on to your questions. We have about another 40 questions, which means we'd probably be here for another 2 hours, and we can't do it. Steve, what are your predictions for 6G?
6G, haven't got a clue. I don't even understand 5G. I mean, none of us really know what 5G is. It's something that's evolving. It's going to change, and we're all doing, guesswork at this stage. So 6G, that much further away.
Great. Carl, will 5G cause sudden infant death syndrome?
The wireless technology is similar to all the other Gs. It would be hard to say, but I wouldn't rule it out either. So I don't know.
So gee whiz, maybe?
Well, one of the reasons, parents are using these monitors for their infants is they're worried about sudden infant death, right? They want to know that the child, for some of the things that you put into a crib, it's a mat that you lie on, that an infant lies on, and it measures their heartbeat. So it's giving information about their heartbeat to the parent's phone all the time. And so, if you have a history of sudden infant death, or you're really, really concerned about it, then by all means, keep your child as safe as possible the best way you know how. And none of us can tell you how to do that. As a parent, that's really up to you. But try to avoid the technology as much as possible, because down the road, there could be consequences. So whether it causes or contributes to sudden infant death, I really don't know. But just be aware that it could. But if it's a serious issue in your family and it's going to give you a peace of mind to, monitor your child, then that might be the best route for you to take at this stage.
Magda's done research on looking at a cordless telephone that you plug the cordless telephone in and it radiates, and an adult's heart doubles in the number of beats. So the adult goes into tachycardia. She unplugs the phone, and within a beat of the heart, it goes right back down.
Wow.
So that adult that this wireless technology is impacting their heart. So that's why I say that, we, like Magda's demonstrated over and over again, that there is an impact of wireless technology on a heart. So with an infant and that close proximity of the, again, you can have a sound technology that would document the breathing and the sound. So I would choose methods that don't involve microwave radiation to do that monitoring, because like Magda said, it's something that all parents want to do, is protect their kids in the best way possible. You just don't want to be protecting them on one level and potentially harming them on another while you're trying to protect them.
Thank you so much. And here's the final question. Sarah, I am 6 months pregnant and my husband refuses to turn off our Wi-Fi. What can I tell him to make him see common sense?
I would say a divorce lawyer, but that's...
There's a Baby Safe project through the Environmental Health Trust. Gives a lot of information about pregnancy and protecting children. One thing that she really wants to do is not be hyper stressed about it, because that stress is toxic for that child. You've already talked about the emotional component. At a very minimum, have them put it on a timer that is off when they sleep. The husband's not going to be using the Wi-Fi when he's asleep. So that would be a practical, easy route to go on. And even if he doesn't think that it's a problem, you're erring on the side of caution. There's a peace of mind. That kind of level of comfort within a family is really important. There's going to be lots of things as parents that they're going to have to go back and forth on. And so trying to find a way that's practical, that's proactive, and there's no downside to approaching it that way.
And stress reducing. In China, when they had the one-child policy, they wanted to make sure that if they were going to give birth to a child, it was going to be very healthy. And so what the women did at work is they put on an apron that was made of the silver fiber. And they would basically wear their apron at work or at home where they were exposed to the radiation, and that provided a certain amount of a protection for the fetus. So the other thing is, a lot of the radiation is going to be absorbed by the mother before it affects the fetus. So by putting this extra protection of an apron, a special apron with silver fiber, I think that could go a long way to protecting the infant and, keeping the marriage healthy and stress-free at the same time.
And the amniotic fluid itself will be very protective for that baby from an RF perspective as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So here we are. We made it to the end. So what would you like to leave everybody with? But before you do, I really want you to give your websites again and any information that you feel would be important for the audience, okay?
Okay, do you want to start?
The electrosensitivesociety.com, so www.electrosensitivesociety.com. There are 12 tips to electromagnetic hygiene, reducing exposure in your office and in your bedroom. There are meter recommendations on that website on how to reduce your exposure. And there are a couple of short little videos on how to wire your technology and really eliminate your exposure. And again, if anybody thinks they're electrohypersensitive, or need any kind of advocacy or help in a school environment, a hospital environment, in a working situation. I also talk to a lot of family members, like you're saying, because sometimes they're on different pages, right? The parents and the kids, the husband and the wife. It's difficult. So providing the science, and I find too, getting together and talking about it, and then being able to answer their questions, and then having a professional come into your home if you need to, because the meters just show you what the exposure is, and that's really helpful.
And my website is www.magdahavas.com. And the other one is theroselab.com. One is on the harmful effects of electrosmog and the beneficial effects of electrotherapy. And I think, one of the things we try to do with these educational webcasts or webinars is to empower people. We really want you to know as much as possible about it, make it as easy as possible for you to understand the information, and then give you tools that you can use in order to make your home, your neighborhood as safe as possible. It's really up to you. But one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to increase your stress. I'm beginning to learn how absolutely critical stress is in our lives. And if we can minimize our stress, our body has an amazing power to heal. And when it comes to this technology, ultimately, we will win. And by we, I'm saying the people who want to minimize exposure. Ultimately, a lot more things are going to be wired that are currently wireless as we learn more about this. And we will look back and, maybe 10 years from now saying, what were we thinking, putting these in schools and hospitals and, old folks' homes, things like that. So really the message is, we want to empower people, and we don't want them to be stressed. We really want you to minimize your stress, because that's how your body's going to heal. And remember, your body has an incredible ability to heal.
Absolutely.
Hear, hear.
Thank you so much. So before you run away, would you join us with your presence, let's say the first week or second week of January? Does that sound okay?
Sure. Second week might be better.
Okay. Well, I'd love to do that if I could. Have you for the second week. Well, I'll have my assistant get in touch with you. I want to thank the two of you for being on. Everybody's just loved the questions. We've got about 70 questions here, so maybe we'll just save those for next time, and then we'll just do a 6-hour show. No, I'm kidding. Thank you very much, ladies.
One last thing is Magda's giving a course next week, a pre-conference course on electromagnetic fields, and it's a medical conference, an EMF medical conference, where CME accreditation is going to be virtual in January. So emfconference2021.com, and get some information and get all of your physicians to join that and learn about how they can reduce their electromagnetic exposure and how they can treat electrohypersensitivity with their patients.
No, my course is on October 23rd and 24th. It starts at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's for 3 hours on both days. So if you can afford to spend 6 hours with us next weekend, we'd love to have you in the course. It's not very expensive, but the information is available on the website, emfconference2021.com.
And you do not have to be a physician. You can be anyone to take this course?
Yes, but if you were in the medical profession and you wanted continuing medical education credits, then you can sign up for it. It's approved in that regard.
Okay, can you just say the website again, please?
emfconference2021.com.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining me, and have a beautiful night, and we'll see you next year, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks, Darrell.
Bye-bye.
Oh, you're
Bye-bye.
so welcome. Bless you both. Well, there you have it, and I'll tell you something. Wasn't that an amazing show? Two very powerful women, and believe it or not, it'll be the women that take back the world, and I just want you to know that, and it's really going to happen. So this coming Monday, I will not be doing a Q&A, but I will do a Q&A a week from this Monday, and I will be answering all your questions. And I'm also going to start off with the first half hour. I'm going to highlight what I would do in a nutritional way, a detox way, how to protect your home, go over some things about 5G, Wi-Fi, and I'll answer your questions. So if you put anything down underneath that you think that is in the realm of what I can answer and what I can do, then I'll make sure that I answer that. But it won't be until a week from this Monday. Now, don't forget about Turning Point 2020. Okay, turningpoint2020.online is where you can go to get tickets. You can watch all the lectures throughout the week from Monday to Friday for only $5. That goes to the World Organization of Natural Medicine. And then if you want to pay $87 and use the code DOCOF-DETOX, you'll get 20% off. And then I'm going to be doing a 2-hour training in the Summerhill Pyramid, and it's the big marble pyramid. And I'll be doing a training on Sunday, and the training will be from 1 until 3 Pacific Standard Time. So if you happen to buy a ticket and want to come on and watch that, and also Dr. Magda Havas is going to be lecturing from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday night, October the 17th, and you're talking about $5 to join, and she's going to be going through a very, very powerful slideshow. So, and also then you'll be able to watch all the other lectures. We've got about 50 different lectures, and guess what? They're the best of the best, okay? And what else do I want to say? My lectures, I'll be doing a lecture from 1 until 3, and it's called The Game is Rigged, but We Can Win. That's, like I said, on Sunday. My second one is at night, and it's called Where the Mind Goes, the Body Must Follow, from 6 until 7. And then the third one is I'm going to be talking about Ixtapa. It's going to be our World Healing and Training Center, and that will be in Ixtapa, Mexico. We're going to talk about what we're going to be doing there, and when we're going to be opening it, and all the things. What we're doing is we're opening up this 220 condo resort in Ixtapa, and we're opening that up to all the practitioners of the world who have trainings, conferences, want to come down, and we're opening up to every family, every human being to come and for as reasonable price as possible, teach a family how to learn how to love themselves, love each other, how to create the perfect day in a nutritional way, how to detox properly. You know, there's nothing worse than spending a lot of money and getting a lot of therapy and then getting sick again because nobody told you how to look after yourself and teach you that your body talks to you and just wants a really great friendship. And this is what we're going to be doing, and people will be coming to us from 1 week to even months. Okay, we're going to be creating a whole huge mecca there. And also in that lecture, I'm going to talk about what a new world practitioner is. And do you know what a new world practitioner is? It's somebody that doesn't just focus on treating you because you're only good till the next treatment. You know, the reality is if every practitioner were to try to teach his patient what he or she knows, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. Okay, all right. And also just know this, you can come to us or we'll come to you for our personal treatment and trainings. You can check that out on my library, which is the most informative library on taking massive personal action to get your life back. If you look at the personal treatment and training guide, tells you about if we come to you or you come to us. All right. And we have upcoming courses in January the 9th here in Kelowna, British Columbia. If you're interested in the whole life coach, Wolfe non-surgical. And I can't tell the future right now. But as far as I can see, it could be a little bit bumpy into the winter time. But, you know, we'll get through this together because guess what? The power is standing together, staying connected to your breath, wear a slight smile, and just say, I got this. And make sure that you don't allow anything into your life that doesn't say, I love you. That's very important, everyone. All right? I want to thank you for joining me. And I want to thank these beautiful ladies that came on this show because without them, I've got no show. And without you, I'd be talking to myself. God bless. Have a beautiful night.
You too.
Welcome to the Summerhill Pyramid. This fused frame pyramid, with its absolute precision and its alignment, is perhaps second only to the Great Pyramid. To go within, take a few moments, to close your eyes and let go of all thoughts and be the receiver. Steve Seitz. So there it is. Steve Seitz, owner of Summerhill Winery, okay, doesn't just have the best organic wine in the world. He created a pyramid so to ferment that wine and to bring the best out of it. So I want you to join me up these stairs where I will bring the best out of you, because guess what? This is the turning point. If you're looking for life-saving and life-changing information, well, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to click and subscribe. Stay connected.